ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. So, any questions, clarification from last time, or is it all clear?
Yes, Swami.
All clear?
Yes, Swami.
That means if I ask you all to present everything, you all should be able to do it, right? What happened?
Yes, Swami.
Okay. So no problems about Tattvamasi, Omkara, etc. Then from the yoga paradigm, now when you are looking at the yoga paradigm, there are 3-4 books which is considered a must if you are going to be a yoga acharya. Okay. One, of course, is the famous Patanjali Yoga Sutras with a couple of bhashyas, etc. available on it. The other is Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Third is Geranda Samhita. And when they are discussing about Omkara, etc., they also bring in the Shivagama, okay, the Shaivism school, because all yogis, traditional yogis, their contention is, and it's true also, that the source of yoga is Lord Shiva himself. I have also talked to you all about Nata and yoga and everything. So, of course, they don't follow that paradigm, they follow a slightly different paradigm. But the Shivagama also becomes one of the cardinal books or the Shastra that makes up Vedanta, especially when you are introducing mantra, etc. into yoga. Based on that, he is interpreting Om in the next way. Remember, this is slightly different from the way Vedanta looks at it. Okay? That's why I wanted you all to be very clear with the way Vedanta looks about it. Okay? And I think Anuradha has also put up a small summary of Paramartha's talk, my Guru Bhai's talk on the group. Not bad, worth reading, worth hearing. Now here he says, because in yoga we saw in the 44th verse, Akara, Ukara, Makara, Bindu and Nada are the 5 aspects of Omkara. Whereas in Vedanta we just restrict it to Avuma, nothing more is necessary. Here they add the Bindu because you are looking at the pictorial representation, Bindu and Nada. Therefore he says, Brahma Vishnu Rudrasya Api Ishwarasya Sadashivaha Teshu Akshareshu Tishtanti Shatrinsa Tattva Samyutaha. Okay. Says Brahmaji, Vishnu and Rudra, Auma, Ishvara and Sadashivaha. Okay. Teshu Akshareshu Tishtanti. It's represented Avuma, Bindu and the Nada. Okay. Now here when you say Rudra, etc., they will be taking it as deities. Okay, Ekadasha Rudraha, 11 Rudras, which are now a manifestation of Ishvara. Okay, they will take it like that. Okay, Ishvara and Sadashiva. Okay, really speaking, Sadashiva, Ishvara, etc., are not looked upon it as different. But in this, for the sake of some upasanas, they look at it like that. Okay, and of course, with the 36 tattvas of Shivagama, 36 existing realities. Where have we come across the 36 existing realities of Shaivism? Where have we come across the 24 tattvas of Sankhya? The 25 tattvas of Yoga? याद है? I given you the clue by putting in all this. Where have we come across the realities that is presented in the Puranas? It's all in Dakshinamurti Sutram, but where? Huh?
Swamiji, Vaisheshika for 24.
Where have we come across?
Here only in Dakshinamurti Stotram, the Vaisheshika.
Where in Dakshinamurti Sutram?
I'll tell you, it is the. It is the second stanza.
Second stanza, exactly.
Vijansyan Tarivankuro Jagadidam,
Exactly.
and that we studied here, that there are 24.
Yeah. In the second, this thing. वो तो बहुत एक साल पहला हो गया ना, सब भूल गया. Okay, so if you want to know what are the 24 tattvas of Sankhya, 25 of Yoga, 36 of Shivagama, etc., please go back and refer. It's all there in the notes. It's all there in the footnotes on this, very clearly said. Please go back and refer to that. Okay. Now, when you are talking about 24 tattvas, 36 tattvas, 25 tattvas, etc., and we also talk about Panchabhutas, etc., tell me, is it a dualistic school or a non-dualistic school? Is it talking about duality or non-duality?
Duality.
Why?
Duality. Talking about creation.
Huh?
Talking about creation.
But we also talk about creation, Panchabhutas, etc.
If we dismiss creation
In what way?
as relative, as mithya,
As mithya,
as
exactly.
dependent on consciousness,
Yeah.
but they take it to be true.
Therefore, when we talk about Panchabhutas, etc., we are not talking about them as tattvas. For us, tattvam is only one thing. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Everything else is manifestation, therefore useful for the creation, which is actually not a creation, it's only a manifestation. And we dismiss it as mithya. We are not saying it is not there. We are not saying it is our mental projection. We are saying it's Ishvara's projection through Maya Shakti. Okay? Whereas when you are talking of 24 tattvas and Sankhya, the moment you use the word tattvas, you are talking about it as realities. You are talking about it as realities. Mohan, your mic off, please. Okay. 24 the 24 tattvas when you talk about in Sankhya, we are talking about 24 realities. Therefore, they are all existing things. Therefore, it essentially becomes a dualistic school. That is why in yoga, etc., it's experience oriented. Okay? Because classical yoga follows the Sankhya philosophy, the Sankhya school of thought, it essentially becomes a dualistic school. And if it is duality, then your experience becomes important. Then, of course, one experience is pitted against another experience. Your experience of the world, your non-dual experience. Then your question is, which is more real? If it's dualistic, then both has to be equally real. Then it is up to you what you give more focus on. What you give more focus on. However, it is good, the school by itself, yoga as a sense, is good to increase your sense of improve your sense of competency. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Therefore, that kushalata, etc., for that, it is very good. Samatvam, kushalata, etc., it's very good to have that. Therefore, there is a benefit to be gained from yoga. That's why we include it as sadhana. Okay? And there is a limitation in terms of knowing the truth, because the pramana is not there. The pramana of the Upanishad is not there in the yoga, in classical yoga. In the older schools of yoga that was there, okay, yoga and Vedanta was clubbed together. Therefore, yoga became a sadhana for Vedanta. In all the yoga Upanishads, etc., that's how it is presented. Okay? Because you have some sort of experiences, etc., it's easier for you to understand the Atma is independent from the body, mind, etc., because of the Samadhi experience, etc. So it helps your understanding. That's how it was presented. Okay? And of course, the mastery that is necessary, mastery of the mind that is necessary to understand Vedanta, also you have. Therefore, that way the older schools of yoga presented it that way. Okay. Therefore, here the presentation of the 5 aspects of Omkara, etc., is only meant for certain upasanas, etc., because they are not explaining the reality. In Vedanta, Omkara is used to explain the reality. Okay? Omityevam aksharam brahma. The non-declinable Brahman is Om. Therefore, Om becomes a name for Brahman. Therefore, we are explaining through Omkara, we are explaining what Brahman is, the reality is. Here, in the Shivagama, etc., that is from where this is taken. Okay? Because 36 principles, that's the indication for it being from Shivagama. It is for upasanas, etc., very powerful upasanas, energy work, etc., beautiful system by itself, not for moksha. Preparation, yes, very good, use it. If you want some sort of experiences to help your understanding, good, use it. But remember, Vedanta is not a matter for experience, it's a matter for understanding. It's a cognitive change, that is important. But if you want some experience to help you understand, to help you bring that cognitive change, then you can use that, as long as you are not going to be stuck in that experience. Then it is fine. Okay. Yeah, please ask. Yeah. The reverberation sound. That's why remember when you chant Om in yoga, you always extend it, no? Yeah. So that reverberatory sound that happens, the vibration that happens, that's presented as the nada. Yeah. Then anahata, without chanting, without all that thing comes in, you know. Like how in pranayama also you have the conscious breath and the subconscious breath, no? And when you are consciously, you stop breathing, still your subtle body starts breathing. Sukshma Sharira level, there is a breath. Okay? So it's almost as though your nadis are breathing, expanding and contracting. Yeah. So similarly here you will say nada, anahata, etc. Yeah. You will say that. Therefore, use for upasanas. That's why the stretching of the Omkara. Though in Vedanta we say Eka Aksharam, that is it, one syllable, Om. That's it. Like you say A, one syllable, Om, one syllable. The time taken should be the same. Because we are not Omkara Upasana in Vedanta is different than Omkara Upasana elsewhere. So in Yoga, Shivagama, etc., when you are using Omkara as an Upasana, you will necessarily stretch it because that nada is important for you. Therefore, how you will chant will depend upon what you are hoping for. What is your target? What is your goal? What is it that you are hoping to gain out of it? I mean, you can make a joke of it. We Vedantins generally make a joke about that elongation, you know. But that's just a joke we say, you know, just so that people don't get stuck in that type of chanting and that type of experiences. Because remember, Vedanta, you're very dispassionate towards everything, you know. That vairagya towards everything is high, necessary to understand the truth. Therefore, we may make a joke of some other practices, etc., just so that the students are not stuck there. We use the principle of khandana mandana. You will negate in some ways so that you don't get stuck there, and you accept it as an aid and as help for the whole thing. This is the approach in Vedanta right through. So some teachers may focus a bit more on the khandana, some a bit more on the mandana. That's all. The only difference may be only there. How much emphasis is given for all. Like if you look at my teacher Puja Swamiji, Dayanji, his khandana was very high for yoga, etc. Okay. Mandana was less. It was there, but very less. I give it equal weightage. Yeah. So that's the only difference that happens. Yeah. That's the only difference that happens. Because Puja Swamiji's love was such that no student should get stuck in a practice and miss out on moksha because he is stuck on a practice. So his love for the students sometimes made him a little bit critical about other systems. Yeah. And his total commitment to what Vedanta was, yeah, or what Vedanta is. Okay. Yeah, that's all there is there. Clear? Any questions on this? Okay. Then he makes a very, very beautiful statement here, you know. This, I think every practicing yogi should pay attention to this verse. Guru prasadat labate yogam ashtanga lakshanam Shiva prasadat labate yoga siddhim cha shashvatim. Okay. Guru prasadat labate yogam ashtanga lakshanam. The ashtanga lakshanam yoga. Yoga that is made of ashta angas. Yamaniyama, asana pranayama, dharana dhyana, samadhi. Okay. Pratyahara samadhi. Okay. Pratyahara dharana dhyana samadhi. The 8 limbs. He says, Guru prasadat labate. You gain it not by reading books, etc. Though books can be supplement to your learning, you go to a guru and learn. Guru prasadat eva labate. Yeah. Because some of the practices are such, especially in dhyana, pratyahara, etc., pranayamas also, you need to practice it under the guidance of a teacher, of a guru. Very, very important. Otherwise, there can be changes that happen in your system that you have no clue of how to handle. It has happened to some of my students. It has happened to a lot of people whom I know, that certain things happen in your system. In your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, memories are thrown up. A lot of things happen. Okay? Which if you don't know how to tackle, you will get into a mess. You will get into a mess. Changes happen into your physiological system, into your... It's something simple. You practice certain poses, you practice certain pranayamas, certain asanas and pranayamas practice. You will find yourself going to the loo very often. You think something is wrong and you will go and take some treatment. Ayurvedic or allopathic, it doesn't matter. It won't help you. It won't help you. It is supposed to be balanced out by something else of the practice itself. A simple thing I am giving you, a simple example. Yeah. And if the pranayama practices go wrong, your organs are affected. If the dhyana practice go wrong, your mind will be affected. Brain physiology will be affected. Yeah. And you find people acting crazy. Your subconscious is churned up with the pranayamas and dhyanam. lot of things will come up from the subconscious. How do you handle all these things? It has to be monitored. So when you are doing these practices, you have to be monitored. Advanced practice. If you are just going for a yoga class for health, which 99% of the yoga class are only meant for health. They don't know more than asana and little bit pranayamas, from 5-6 pranayamas. That is fine. That is all right. But there also injuries can happen if you do it wrong. You have to be careful because you are twisting your body into different positions. Therefore, if you don't do it properly, you can get injured. Overstretching of the tendons, etc. can happen. Okay? So there also Guru Prasada is necessary. Though he may not be a yoga acharya, etc., but he has some understanding, enough to teach. Yoga acharya, you become, as I said, Yoga Sutras you have done. Gheranda Samhita, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Shivagama. With all those practices, etc., from a teacher you have learned and practiced it, then, and you have gone into Samadhi yourself, only then, really speaking, you can call yourself Yoga Acharya. Some Samadhi experience you should have. Otherwise, how can you call yourself Yoga Acharya? Meaning the whole path you have walked. The nowadays Yoga Acharyas are called Acharyas. Okay? But, okay, fine. Therefore, Guru Prasadat Labate, very important. Then he says, Shiva Prasadat Labate Yoga Siddhim Cha Shashvatim. Shashvatim Yoga Siddhim. Okay? The Siddhi of Yoga that comes. He will mention later on also some. He has mentioned it earlier also. Shiva Prasada Deva Labate. Why? What is in your hands? The practice. Who is to give you the phalam? The Guru can teach. Okay? In yoga this is very important. In any discipline this is important. The Guru teaches, fine. Who is to do what it takes? The student. Yeah. So this guy goes to a class, twice a week class, let us say. Okay? And the Guru is willing to teach all advanced practices. He teaches. Character doesn't practice. Or like in Vedanta, Sunday morning you are searching where your book is. Where did I keep the book last Sunday? Because after that I have not opened it. Yoga more because a lot of practice is involved. Yeah. If you really say you are a student of yoga, at least 5 days a week you must practice. Then you can say, okay, it's good. 3 days if you are practicing, you are only keeping in touch. Okay. 5 days you need. Including class, of course, 5 days. Therefore, that is in your hands. And for the practice, how do you get the phalam? Shiva Prasada. The Ishvara only gives you the phalam. Sometimes you'll keep practicing, nothing happens. Somebody else practices less than you, but that character is getting something. A lot of things are happening. Why? Previous janma samskaras you carried forward, etc. Practice of previous lifetimes you have carried. Therefore, your mind and body, your Sukshma Sharira is geared towards that. So, your body catches up faster. Those things will happen. Therefore, that's karma phalam. That only Ishvara Anugraha is necessary. How do you go into Samadhi? You can practice Savikalpa. Nirvikalpa has to happen. Ishvara's grace is necessary for it to happen. That is why, right in the Yama Niyama, you are taught, in the Niyamas, you are taught Ishvara Pranidhanam. Worship of Ishvara. Surrender to Ishvara, etc. Why? Shiva Prasadat Labate. Shiva Prasadadeva Labate. Ashta. Yoga Siddhim Cha Shashvatim. Shashvatim Yoga Siddhim. Shiva Prasadadeva Labate. In anything it is like that. Anything is like that. Yeah. Even Vedanta teaching. It's God's grace that whole thing clicks for you. God's grace. Yeah. The teacher teaches well because of God's grace. You understand well because of God's grace. That is why Vedanta is always taught along with Ishvara. Ishvara Jnanam is always there along Vedanta, and every teacher will say, thoda do some japa, dhyanam, etc. Get his grace. Important. Okay. Then he is ending this the whole section is coming to an end by saying, Sachidananda Rupaya Bindu Nadantaratmane Adi Madhyanta Shunyaya Gurunam Gurave Namaha. Sachidananda Rupaya, the one who is nothing but Sachidananda himself, limitless existence consciousness. Okay. Bindu Nada Antaratmane. Now look at this. Binduhu Nada Antaratmane. Who is the Atma, or who dwells in, who is available in the Bindu and Nada. How can Sachidananda be available in the Bindu and the Nada? Upalabdhisthanam, they are the alambanas for your contemplation. What is an alambanam? I used a term which I used before. I just want to know whether people remember it or not. What is an alambanam? Hey, I am supposed to be Maunam Vakya, not you all. So when I ask a question, respond. It's a prop, it's an aid for your contemplation, etc. Okay, therefore it's an alambanam. Therefore, Bindu Nada are alambanam. They are the means through which you understand that. Therefore, Bindura Nada Antaratmane. They manifest there, right there. He says, Adi Madhyanta Shunyaya. Here Shunya is not used as Shunya. Shunya meaning to be free from, bereft of. Bereft of what? Adi, Madhya and Anta. That which does not have Shunyaha, does not have beginning, middle and end. That pure consciousness, okay? Gurunam Gurave Namaha. Gurunam Gurave. Who is the Gurunam Guru? Who is the Guru of Gurus? Ishvara himself. Yes. Though it is true that anyone who has got a lot of students who are teachers can also be called Guru of Gurus. Okay? Like I am planning something for Swamiji's 90th Jayanti. Okay? This is on August 15th. And definitely I am going to present him as Guru Nam Guru. Why? He has got 350 Gurus teaching under him. Okay? He has created 350 Gurus. Therefore, Guru Nam Guru. Yes. But ultimate Guru Nam Guru is Ishvara himself. Because he is the source of all knowledge. All Gurus in the Parampara, the source is Ishvara himself. Therefore, Guru Nam Gurave Namaha. Sri Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. My prostrations to him. Okay? The source of the whole thing. So, in this conclusion, if you notice, he has summed up everything. All this he has put in this verse, he has summed up. Sachidananda Rupaya, this is exactly what the Atma is. And Bindu Nada Antaratmane, therefore all the upasanas, etc. that he mentioned is indicated there. Then what is the nature of the reality? Adi Madhyanta Shunyaya, Guru Nam Gurave, Dakshina Murtaye, Namaha. Because the source of all knowledge is the Lord himself. There is no other source. Any knowledge. It's not only spiritual knowledge, the Lord is the source. For Veda, Ishvara is the source. Then what about science? Science also, Ishvara is the source. Physics, chemistry, mathematics, everything. Languages, everything, Ishvara is the source. Why? Knowledge is about what is. What is from Ishvara. Therefore, the knowledge of what is already there in Ishvara. You are only discovering it in the world. Therefore, it doesn't matter what it is. That's why in India, we look upon all knowledge as sacred. No knowledge. We don't make this sacred secular divide. We don't make. Why? For us, everything is Ishvara. Everything is Ishvara. All knowledge is Ishvara, from Ishvara. Therefore, all knowledge is sacred. How can you have secular knowledge? There is no secular knowledge. There is no knowledge which does not have the touch of Ishvara in it. Simple as that. There is nothing secular about any knowledge. All knowledge is sacred because all knowledge is from the source, Ishvara himself. Now people idiotically will study some knowledge and say this is secular knowledge. That's their idiocy. And that idiocy also is because of Maya Shakti anyway. Okay? That idiocy is also from Maya Shakti. Yeah. So we idiotically assert we don't believe in sacredness, we are scientific people. You are following a certain paradigm of certain knowledge, that's all. You are following a scientific paradigm. Some knowledge follows a non-scientific paradigm. As long as both the knowledge works, it's fine. All knowledge is sacred. We made a division in terms of Vaidika and Laukika. Not sacred and secular. Vaidika Jnanam, what is dealt with in the Veda, etc. The sixth Pramana. And Laukikam, which is based on your 5 Pramanas. Are you all understanding this? Yes or no? Yeah. Yeah. Vaidika knowledge. Knowledge of life hereafter, karma, karma phalam, all dimensions, Atma Jnanam, etc. Ishvara Jnanam, Atma Jnanam, Vaidikam. It comes from that Pramana. Your Laukika Jnanam, science, economics, commerce, trade, etc. All of them comes from your 5 Pramanas. Therefore, we made that difference. Laukikam, Vedikam cha. That type. And karma also Laukikam, Vedikam cha. We made only that type of a difference. Because what are the Pramanas used to know it? Therefore, that difference was made. But we did not make a sacred secular difference. Very important to understand this. As students of Vedanta, it is important to understand. Yeah. Everything is sacred to a Vedanta. Forget Vedanta, to a Hindu, everything is sacred. Forget Hindu, to an Indian, everything is sacred. I told you, I seen that Muslim trainer in the gym. A heavy weight was rolling heavy, he stopped it with his leg. Because that was the right thing to do, because otherwise it would have gone and injured somebody. Then he picked up the weight and kept it in its proper place and is touching it to his eyes. Why? अरे पाव लगाया उसको ऊपर. पाव कैसा लगा सकते? Sacred. He is a Muslim. He is not supposed to see anything other than Allah as sacred. By his religion, he is not supposed to. He is not supposed to bow down to anything other than Allah. But the Indian psyche, that everything is sacred has gone so much into him. It is there in his racial memory. Couldn't avoid it. As they say, you can take a Hindu outside of the religion, but you cannot take Hinduism outside. Completely it will never go. It will never go. You can be a convert, you can do this, you can do everything, but thoda, the samskaras will be there in you. You can't avoid it. Yeah. Even if you are born into a Christian family, some of the samskaras will be there in you. Like in this case, it's a Muslim family, but samskaras were there. Why? Because everything is sacred. It has become almost like an instinctive recognition in India. Except among the modern liberal Indians where they deliberately deny it. Foolishly, deliberately deny it. Yeah. Read my post, my small article on who's a liberal, who's a true liberal, and you'll get the idea. Yeah, if it's deliberately denied, that's a different thing. Otherwise, everything is sacred. There's nothing which is non-sacred. No knowledge which is non-sacred. That's why even a fanatic Hindu who will burn a history book because it is presenting wrong facts. He's saying, Akbar the Great, not Shivaji the Great. So therefore he goes and burns it. He will also not stamp on that book. He is burning the history book as a mark of protest, but he will not stamp on it. Why? Yeah. Words, na? Printed word is knowledge. Knowledge is Saraswati, all said and done. Distorted hai idhar, lekin still it is knowledge. No? Therefore, that is the thing. Okay? Guru Nam Gurave Namaha Adi Vidyanta Shunya. Okay. Then it says, Iti Sri Dakshinamurti Srotartha Pratipadake. This Dakshinamurti Srotartha, the Pratipadaka, the one that is revealing more deeper meanings of it. Prabandhe Manasolase, called as a Manasolasa. Navama Shloka Sangraha. The 9th sloka has come to an end. Look at it. Most of the sloka, if you look at it in the Manasollasa, okay, once you finish the devotion to the Ishvara, etc., after that, the whole thing was based on the yoga paradigm. Okay, the whole thing was more of an explanation of yoga than of Vedanta, which shows in the later years of Vedanta, later years meaning Shankara onwards, okay, how much importance was given to yoga. Okay, by the Vedantins themselves. The importance was given because we all recognize there is a need to prepare the mind. You cannot come to Vedanta without Adhikaritvam. Okay? Adhikaritvam becomes very, very important. Because Vedanta will work only in an Adhikari's mind. The strength of the traditional teaching is such that it can give you insights even if you are not fully qualified. It can give you insights. But you can never own up the truth unless you have mastered your mind. Viveka Vairagya Shat Sampatti Mumukshutvam. If this is not there in good measure, this is not there, Vedanta will not work. Sometimes everything can be there. Viveka, Vairagi, Shat Sampatti, everything can be there. Mumukshutvam not there. You're just curious about Vedanta, that's all. Some Shubhecha is there. Shubhecha means desire to do something good. After all, the cultural heritage, etc. Let us learn to live. That much alone. Nothing more. It won't work. Therefore, because that Adhikaritvam is important. And in Vedanta, the main sadhana is something that works 24/7, constantly. What is that sadhana that works 24/7? Come on guys, respond fast. What is this? Karma Yoga, exactly. Because that's the only thing that can work 24/7. You can't do pranayamas 24/7. Okay. Therefore, the main, if you look at the Gita for example, the main sadhana given. Ishwararpanam Prasada Buddhi, Karma Yoga is the main sadhana. Then little bit dhyanam etc., little bit worship etc., so that Bhakti Bhavam can come up. Because without Bhakti Bhavam, how can you do Karma Yoga? How can you have the attitude of Ishwararpanam and Prasada Buddhi if there is no understanding of Ishvara and the emotional response that comes from it? Therefore, that much of that was included. Then why did yoga etc. gain such a height? This thing? Yoga always had it. Okay? In fact, if you really look at the whole study of Vedanta, okay, if you are a good adhikari, I am constrained to use a subjective word good. Okay? Meaning you have adhikaritvam in a reasonable measure. If you are uttama adhikari, like Arjuna, Gargi, Maitri, no, Shetaketu, etc. If you are like that, Shravana Matram, because the Pramana has to work on you. The Pramana works during Shravanam. Enough. But if you are not an Uttamadhikari like that, how many of us are Uttamadhikaris? I was not an Uttamadhikari when I started studying Vedanta, okay? Honest confession. I don't think I know anyone who went to Vedanta as an Uttamadhikari. Though I found some of the students talking about their guru, oh, he was Uttamadhikari. I know. They were all my batchmates, I know. Okay. None of us were. Yeah. My guru has said the same thing. I was not an Uttamadhikari. Therefore, I have not seen any Uttamadhikaris other than the pages of the Upanishads and the Gita. I have not seen. And I have seen a lot of people. Okay. A lot of students who have become teachers. So I know. Therefore, if you are not an Uttamadhikari, little, thoda, lacking, no, then Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam. You'll do Mananam because you may have some doubts cropping up. So Mananam either by yourself or through the study of the Bhashya or through discussion with your batchmates, etc., or checking up with the Guru. All these are part of Mananam. Nididhyasanam, contemplation to own up the truth, to take care of your habitual errors, to take care of the dichotomy that you have created between your knowing, doing, etc. Therefore, with that, Shravana Manana Nididhyasanam story is complete. It's enough. No, Swamiji, I have thoda ragadvesha hai. There are certain things I can't stand. Certain things I can't accept. Certain people I cannot tolerate. Even tolerate, forget accept. Okay. Samadhanam, very much lacking. Alright. Therefore, along with Shravana Manana and Nididhyasanam, your life of Karma Yoga comes into the picture. Because Samatvam, all that you will gain. Swamiji, is there any way of me speeding up the process of Karma Yoga? Because Karma Yoga will take a few years, na? Few years. I have a desire for a child. So first I have to find somebody who will marry me. Who's willing, who's foolish enough to marry me. Okay, first that. Then we have to have a relationship. Then I have to wait patiently. Okay, for us to get pregnant. Then 9 months for the delivery. Then by that time you can't say desire is fulfilled, because part of the desire is upbringing of the child. Desire for a child means what? Have a child and forget about it. That is not desire. To be able to take care, to be totally responsible for another life form. हम जी 20 साल चले जाएगा इसमें. Correct. It will take that time. Is there anything along with that to speed up the process? Because you can always speed up the process, no? There is where the whole Ashtanga Yoga comes into the picture. There are various ways. Remember, it is something to be done. Therefore, you can do a little bit more japa dhyanam. You can do a little bit more of puja and things like that. Literally, Ishwararpanam Prasada Buddhi. Okay? You can do some energy work, etc. Or you can take to a discipline like yoga. Because yoga is actually a spiritual process, is not an exercise system. That it gives you good health, functional fitness is a byproduct. It's a byproduct. Yoga takes care of the body and your energy systems so that you can live long enough to know the truth. You can live in good health, your body will not disturb you in your pursuit of the truth. Your body and mind will not disturb you. It helps build up adhikaritvam all the way. So, as a karma yogi, you want to speed up the process, spend some time in yoga. Are you getting how the whole question, whether it is ancient yoga or classical yoga that we practice, or even the modern thing that is coming up? The whole thing became associated with Vedanta for this purpose. To ensure that you have adhikaritva. Why? You gain a lot of focus. Uparati, etc. you will gain by yoga. Samadhanam you will gain. Samadama will happen. All this will happen with yoga. Yeah. With dhyanam, etc. a lot more can happen. Your mind is ready to absorb the truth. It becomes a lot of that whole dhyanam and samadhi practice. You have some sort of experiential understanding of non-duality. But it is, as I said, samadhi is one experience, world is another experience. It's dualistic experiences. But because you have had this, when Vedanta is saying the whole thing is mithya, not real, this, that, you will say, yes, correct. I had some experiential insight. Therefore, it's easier for me to understand Vedanta. So, when it is done like that, it becomes a great preparation for Vedanta. And that's how it was meant. That is how the ancients meant it. The ancient rishis, etc., or even up to the time of Sureshwara Acharya, when he talked about yoga, this is how he meant yoga to be used. And the problem that happens is always a question of identity. When you don't have the big picture of life as such, the big picture of the Shastra, if you don't have, then your practice, your disciplines, etc., becomes absolute for you. And therefore, many people who are practicing yogas said, no, we are a separate system. We don't want to play second fiddle to Vedanta. I remember in one of my camps with this yoga teacher meaning modern yoga teacher. He knew some asana pranayama, nothing more. Okay? Nothing more. When I said yoga is a preparation for Vedanta, he got upset. And he went and told my teacher, I am dismissing yoga. I am not dismissing yoga, I am validating it by saying it's a preparation. But for him, that was insulting. No big picture. Nah? If you don't have the big picture of moksha, etc., how can you get it? If you don't have a big picture of Satyam Mithya, how will you understand it? The yoga teachers who come and listen to me at the World Yoga Festival don't have this problem. Why? Because they have been practicing yoga for some time and they are looking for something more. That's why I go there. People ask me, why are you going for a yoga festival? You are a Vedanta teacher. I said, yes, I am a Vedanta teacher, first and last. In between, a few other things may be there in me. But I am going there because they want to know more than the whole thing. Therefore, I help them expand their mind and get a bigger picture. Yeah. Therefore, yoga as a separate system is created or made by people who don't have the big picture. Including one champion who says, Sadguru means uneducated teacher. He says, though he is good in many ways, and I respect a lot of things that he says, and I respect his knowledge of yoga. I respect that. It's very good. I have no hesitation in recommending anyone to go and learn yoga from him. Okay. But he says this because he doesn't have the big picture of moksha with him. He thinks that experiences is all that is there. And I also know he has read some of my teacher's books. Okay, he quietly sent some of his students to pick up some of the books from our ashram. Yeah, that's okay. It's good. We don't have copyright over Vedanta anyway, so it's not a problem. Not a problem. It'll be nice if he acknowledges it, but if he doesn't acknowledge his own guru very often anyway. So what does it matter? It's okay. It doesn't matter. But what I'm trying to say is this separating out came because of that. And once they started presenting it as an independent system capable of moksha, Vedantin was constrained to negate that. Because as an independent system for moksha, it won't work. It will give you some experiential insights. That much it will give you. But as an independent system for moksha, it won't work. The Vedantin knows that because he has the big picture of moksha. Therefore, he was constrained to negate it. So, when you hear this conflict that is there, Vedantins are negating yoga, at the same time practicing yoga, etc., understand what the whole thing is about. Understand what the whole picture is about. Otherwise, you will end up with a lot of confusion. And yoga is part of our soft power now in India? Of course it is. Vedanta cannot become part of the soft power. Vedanta is not meant to be used for that. Yoga can be, music can be, art can be, dance can be. So, it's appropriate. It's appropriate. Are you all getting the big picture now? Yes or no? Okay. Yeah, understand this big picture, okay? Yeah. Therefore, when the Vedantin negates yoga, it has got nothing to do with your adhikaritva. It has got only this, that yoga, independent of Vedanta, cannot give you moksha. That's all we are saying. That's all we are saying. It's a great system for everything else. Is one of the finest systems. Yeah. In fact, I myself started with yoga. Yeah, a lot of things. But I needed a little bit more dynamic system. Therefore, I shifted from yoga to martial arts. Remember the branching from Nata. Yoga for those for simple household people who didn't want to get into martial arts, etc. For me, the Nata aspect, the martial aspect was more appealing. Therefore, I went into that. Same sources, same Nata. Yeah. Therefore, the discipline that gives you adhikaritvam in yoga, I gained from martial arts. Martial arts helped me for my adhikaritvam. Same thing can be gaining in yoga as well. Why? It's a finite thing. Mastery of the mind is a finite thing. Therefore, kartum shakyam, akartum shakyam, anyatha kartum shakyam can be done differently. 100 different ways of getting it. Therefore, as a system, yoga was always used as part of our cultural thing. And Vedantin supported that much. Or they only negated it as independent means for moksha. Big picture clear? Okay, alright. So, even though there are a few minutes left, I think it's a good place to stop and we can start the next verse in the next class. Because if I go into the next verse now, I'll only be able to give you a translation, nothing more than that. Okay, and it's already past 12. So, have a great day, enjoy yourselves. Om Tat Sat.